It is the dry season in northeast Thailand. In this tiny village called Banadi, archaeologists are digging up the past. With the help of a New Zealand university, their findings are turning the prehistory of Asia upside down. Villagers had occasionally dug out areas looking for whole pottery that could be sold. But now, working with the excavation team, they're looking for something more important. Charles Higham, an anthropologist from New Zealand, and Amphan Kijngam from the Thai Fine Arts Department are directing the dig. Reaching a depth of 4 meters, a time long before the first cities, they're trying to piece together a picture of the changes in human behavior that lie at the root of our civilization. Banadi is a simple village of about 150 people. It's built on a mound that rises 9 meters above the surrounding plain. 4 of those meters are made up of the collected debris of 4,000 years of occupation. The great Khmer kingdom that spans the border between Thailand and Kampuchea to the south was always thought to be the work of invading people from India, and it was assumed that these same people brought with them the technology and forms of civilization. Until, in 1975, in a village called Ban Chiang, the late Chester Gorman revealed the presence of a much earlier civilization in Thailand. It was not just the beauty and the variety of the things in themselves that caught the imagination. That they existed at all suggested a different shape to the past. But fame brought these things into great danger, and many sites were looted and lost. To continue the work, test digs were put down in a dozen sites before Banadi was chosen.
There are many points that decided us. I think probably the most important is that we were aware from the villagers that it was going to be a deep sequence. They explained to us when they looted what they found, and also that they hadn't looted the whole site. So there was certain areas where we could work.
Human bones that have never seen the light of day harden in the sun. To rebuild the world in which they lived, we'll need every clue that can be recovered. The hopes and fears of a society surround the dead. Graves hold more than bones, and infinite care is needed to read it correctly.
One of the messages that's come out of the last 10 years of research here is that the dating of burials by radiocarbon hasn't worked.
The original grave was cut down into the earth, and soil surrounding the body will be a confused mixture.
It's rather pleasing to hear those carbon samples from the sealed clay fixtures, isn't it?
Yeah, they'll help. Well, there's another little whole pot, which we can reconstruct later. Oh, okay, she's going. Brian, as I move it gently down, just support the weight, that's right. And just move it very, very gently towards me, right? And then ease it down in the middle. Good. Now, take the weight of the... I'll take the weight here. You get that edge here. I'll get this. Right.
Carbon from grave sites may be misleading for dating, but there's still a great deal that can be learned from the bones themselves. Details of sex and age, health and diet.
Well done.
The University of Otago, where Charles Higham is Professor of Anthropology, will provide the backup analysis of all the material recovered from Banadi.
At last, we've got some of the human material in Dunedin. I thought you'd have a quick look at some of it.
And this is from your last excavation?
That's right. Just the first few pieces.
They had quite a harsh diet, from the look of that.
Yes, we're getting a lot of shellfish and other fairly rough stuff in the middens, so I assume that wear must have been fairly rapid.
Look, there's a little bit of calculus there.
Oh,
and
yes.
if one, again, saw the whole series, you might find there was evidence of a little bit of beetle chewing. That's quite unusual. I wouldn't expect
The medical school will help with the analysis of human bone, but animal bone is also a valuable source of information.
These are the toe bones of water buffalo. This animal here was never used for work, and this one was. As a result, where the tendons are inserted into the bone, these great ridges have developed. And we're very interested in this because this animal was used to pull a plough. It's a modern one, and we know that. When we compare it with a prehistoric specimen, we find that it too closely resembles the specimen which was used for pulling a plough, and we think this one too was probably used for work of some sort in prehistory.
The domestic water buffalo's history here is nearly as old as Banadi. Every level of a dig needs to be understood as a surface. The delicate tracery on the walls marks the living surface in profile and gives to each its own dead. This is a baby's funeral casket. Before any interpretation of artifacts can begin, the living shape is restored, the hearth recut, the graves remarked, the houseposts redug. From within the dig site, every fragment is recovered. Every bucket of soil is passed through a sieve. Every fragment is labelled according to the level from which it was taken. To preserve the pattern of relationships between things, every artifact is recorded, photographed and drawn before it is lifted. From within a grave cut, all soil is washed and fine-screened to recover every fragment of shell or pottery or bone, everything that might give life to the society that is re-emerging. The custom of placing offerings in graves gives the archaeologist a glimpse of the wider world he is uncovering, the beginnings of social distinction and individual wealth, and the natural world that surrounded the human group.
These people used to
put food in with the dead, and this particular shellfish found with the burial is a very interesting one because the shape of the spire is related to the water in which the shellfish was living. So when we can get it out complete, then we can say quite a lot about the prehistoric environment.
Banadi means good rice land, and the village still lives by farming rice. For 4 months, the excavation crew of 16 students from Bangkok and New Zealand were accepted into a community that was a living commentary on the past.
My picture is of a very small village, perhaps 10 or 15 households, living on stilt houses made of bamboo, living in a forested habitat next to a permanent lake with a small permanent stream flowing right past the village, and that they were cultivating rice along the swampy margins of the lake and maintaining domestic cattle in the forest margins as well.
Human settlement has helped to change the climate in Banadi. It's drier now. Thousands of years of paddy farming have cleared the trees, and Banadi is beginning a new chapter. Banadi has lived through many changes. Metal technology in Banadi dates from the very beginning of the site. Crucibles were found and fragments of smelted ore. Bronze was tempered into arrowheads and decorative bangles. Later, iron was beaten into ploughs and axes.
One of the problems here is going to be determining precisely what part of the burial this anklet belongs to, because the bones up there are so disturbed, probably in prehistory. We may not be lucky enough to find out whether it is in fact part of an anklet or a bracelet, but one thing we can be sure of is that the burial must have been cut from up there, because you can see the cut in the section, which is rather nice.
Femur?
Yes. The femurs are at right angles to each other, and the bones are in and out of this whole pot here. So it may be that someone dug a post hole down into them during the prehistoric period, and that accounts for the disarray that we see in front of us.
Iron ore is common on the Karat Plateau, and its natural occurrence caused some confusion.
So this would be remarkably early, if it turns out to be iron. Oh dear, look. Iron?
Probably the letter A.
What's that? It's a tube. You're sceptical.
Probably wood.
Wood?
No, I guess.
Not very impressive to look at, but it'll be very intriguing to find out precisely what it is. There she sits.
Particles from casting, as well as artifacts, were discovered at Banadi, and there was clear evidence of trade.
It's these minor peaks I'm interested in, see if we can trace back some of the ore sources. Well, that one there is arsenic.
By fingerprinting individual samples, it is possible to map the wider relationships of the ancient community.
Interestingly enough, in a thin section, we found that several of the strings of copper had tin in them.
Oh. Well, John, this is absolutely terrific, because for years we've wondered whether people were trading ingots of copper and tin or whether they were trading ore. And I think this is the first time that we've actually come across evidence that they were trading ore.
Where do you think the ores come from?
I wish I knew.
Before exchange can begin, the imagination must reach out to the new possibility.
People never thought that Thailand or Southeast Asia was important. They felt that innovations came here from India and China. What excavations here and in adjacent territory is showing is that there was a very early development towards food cultivation here, towards animal domestication, and indigenous developments too in the field of bronze technology and ironworking. This has come as a great surprise, and it shows that this area has a great deal to contribute to world prehistory, to the understanding the development of mankind as a whole.
Oh, this paradise off.
No, it's not. You're kidding. Make Hong and Circle with soda is the best part of my day.
Everything changes and nothing changes. Large ideas move away from small villages into walled cities, but the village remains. Pots, similar to those found in Ban Chieng, were found in Banadi, but whether they came by trade or imitation was not clear. Potters use the same clays and the same temperas for generations, but a computer may be able to record enough similarities in style to identify individual craftsmen. The shaping of the rim will hold the habits of the potter's hand. Brian Vincent is working on a PhD in trading patterns of Thai pottery. At Dunedin, his analysis will map the geographical range of the clays found at Banadi. Subtle differences of trace elements and changes in tempera will locate traditional clay pits. Pots, reconstructed from hundreds of sherds, will show firing techniques and the methods used in making them. Pottery changes slowly and carries with it the persistent voice of the past.
Now, if you can just try to ease it up a little towards me. Okay, with a bang. There we go. Well, that's nice. That must be about the first time anyone's lifted this up for 1,000 years. Do you want to hold it? There you go. Now, Job, let's see if we can pop it in here.
Banadi has become a window in time,
Pop it on the ground.
and through it, archaeologists are trying to see more clearly into those changes in human behavior that grow towards civilization.
Would you like to take it up?
All the material from Banadi and from Ban Chiang will be analysed in Dunedin before being shipped back to Thailand. For these students, unravelling the intricate patterns, recreating the continuity of the past, there may be a more humane vision of man's history.